Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, and appreciate you taking the time for us to talk to you about risk management, detection, and response with our Guardian Shield MDR service. My name is Tyson Choptain, joined today by Alvin Cowley. Talk about cybersecurity and how it affects you, and the services and the technologies that we can talk about to help protect your organizations. Quick agenda. So we're going to talk about cybersecurity has changed, and that all types of organizations of all sizes, SMBs, medium businesses, large businesses, enterprise businesses, all different types of organizations, not-for-profit companies, schools, charities, whatever your organization might be, the risk is the same. There is no differentiation between size. There is no differentiation of shape of an organization. The bad actors don't care who you are or what you do. They just want to get money. That's really all they're motivated by. Talk about the cybersecurity challenge and what we need to do to protect ourselves and the options that are available and why it's so critical. Then we'll get into Guardian Shield MDR, talk a little bit about it, and then we'll do a brief demo, and then we'll leave some time for questions and answers as well. So cybersecurity has changed, and the risk is now every type of organization all around the world of every size is at risk. And it's really important to talk about what the risk really is today. And this is my favorite cyber crime article. It's actually from 2020, and it predicted the future very, very well. It actually underpredicted the future. So this article came out, and it really shocked the cybersecurity world when it came out in 2020, because it predicted that by 2025, cybercrime would be a $10.5 trillion industry, and it really has become an industry. I want everyone to understand that this is a criminal activity operated by organized crime like any other company would run a company. They hire people, they put them in buildings, and they spend all day committing what we consider cybercrime and what the people doing it just consider a job. It's so large that it's expected that by this year, it will eclipse just about every other type of criminal activity and the dollar value that criminal activity represents, more profitable than the drug trade worldwide. And just to give an idea of just how much money there is in cybercrime at $10.5 trillion, it would be the sixth largest industry in the world, behind construction, behind retail and e-commerce, behind manufacturing worldwide, all types of manufacturing combined. It's already ahead of auto manufacturing by itself. That's how much money there is to be made by the bad actors. Now you think for them to make $10.5 trillion, they're going to be driving, to get 5 million, 50 million out of large major companies. Nope. It's like the microtransactions in modern gaming. They're looking to get $5 here, $500 there, $5,000 here, $50,000 here. They don't care. They're going everywhere they can, any chance to get it. 61% of SMEs have been a target of a cyber attack in the last year in one way, shape, or form or another. Even if your organization hasn't been directly attacked, you probably have another organization that you deal with that has been attacked that's affected you in some way. The average cost of $1 million. Now, generally in Canada, especially in the small, medium business space, people go, well, this is going to cost me anywhere near $1 million, even if I get attacked. You don't just have to look at the actual cost of the attack. You have to look at all of the downtime, all the ancillary impact that goes with it. You have to look at the business lost or the function you weren't able to perform because your systems were down or unavailable. You look at the total scale of everything that costs your organization, and you'll be shocked what days of downtime actually costs. And 67% have been attacked more than once. Usually because most people that are attacked, most organizations and people that are attacked don't realize that they've already been compromised well before the attack actually becomes visible and active to them. And so there's lingering components if it's not cleaned up properly or not monitored or understood properly that the bad actors can take advantage of and re-attack you again and then re-attack you again.
And Tyson, that's a really good point. if I might just add, and it's one of the things that we see often, is that when we come in and we implement any kind of technology that it's going to try to monitor and do this type of detection and response, the first thing that we notice typically are that there are some underlying indications of compromise that are there. And so that number that you had, which is 61%, actually might be a bit higher, because that's that you've been attacked. And often what we see is that you don't actually even know that you've been attacked. Just recently, actually, we had an experience where there was remnants of an attack that actually had occurred. And we were able to go in and with the technology go in and figure out what happened. But that just goes to show is that you don't really know what you don't know. And the other point that I wanted to bring out was that we were talking about in terms of the industry and how many trillions of dollars that it actually brings in. They run a business. It's ranked in there like a business because they actually run it like a business. There's there's things like ransomware as a service, but there's a lot of as a service in criminal activities as well, which allows a lot of people with lower technical expertise to get into that type of criminal activity. And I've had the I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate. Fortunate that I can see this and I have experienced it. Unfortunate that I had to actually be there. But the customer support is comparable to some of the best that you would ever have from a legitimate company. So I just wanted to add those couple of points in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. I just want to understand also the scale of what we're talking about here. AI is playing a role now in automated threat creation. So now they don't even need to hire people. The bad actors are leveraging AI to attack all of us. The target lists just keep growing. As each company gets compromised, the bad actors just generate more and more data of who to go after and who to compromise. It's out there on the dark web. It's available. As Alvin mentioned, there's ransomware as a service. One company gets compromised, I can get a list of all contacts from all their customers, and then I can go and attack all their customers. It just continues to raise the attack volume. Now, the number one question we get when we talk about cybercrime and cybersecurity is people go, why is it so much bigger than it was before? Well, sadly, hopefully you're not a major investor in Bitcoin. This is why I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin. There is a direct relationship to ransomware and cybercrime and Bitcoin. Because if you've ever been ransomed or compromised, the number one way they want to get paid is Bitcoin. Because while Bitcoin is the only traceable currency, it's actually the most easiest currency to transfer over the internet. So it's the easiest way to get paid when you're a bad actor that wants to go and attack the entire world and wants to be able to get paid by the entire world. And it's the one currency they can use across it. And there is a direct relationship between the growth of ransomware from 2016 to 2024 and the rise of the value of Bitcoin from 2016 to 2024. It's an amazing comparative stat. It's easier than ever for them to have a mechanism to do something to your environment and force you to pay some money to do it. Ransomware being one example, all kinds of other examples, compromised email accounts where they convince accounting teams to send payments to a different account, all types of activities. It's what we see in cyber crime, and they're leveraging a Bitcoin that has made this so possible for them. We've also made it more possible for them. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I want to make a point because we're, when we talk about, the idea of Bitcoin and money being a motivator, it is the most likely case that we're going to encounter is that it's a ransomware asking for some sort of financial payment, some sort of payment, Bitcoin, whatever it is. There's the possibility also, not to exclude it, that it could be also related to some sort of espionage, information, getting trade secrets, those kind of things, which are actually they go undetected for a really long period of time, typically, and you might never ever have to pay any kind of Bitcoin. But the point being is that in the last, I'd say about 40 cases that I've seen, it's all been related to financial motivation for any kind of attack that's happened. But there's also the possibility of espionage. Just wanted to add that part in.
Yeah, so thank you. And like I said, we've made it more possible. COVID impacted all of us, or, remote work and work from home, became a norm for a lot of organizations. But that opened a lot of doors to the bad actors. There was a lot of cybercrime committed during COVID at a level that had never been seen before because people just had to open things up and make everything more available, start using cloud services super fast, and we're able to put all the right security controls and mechanisms in to make sure it was being done as safe as possible. And we haven't left that. We haven't gone away from it. So now you stood all this stuff up in a short period of time to be able to manage everything right in an emergency situation. And a lot of it's still operating in a lot of organizations, kind of just the same way it was when it was stood up rather quickly for an immediate need. People haven't gone back now and done the governance and compliance and risk to understand, wow, I've got these 5 new web services I'm using now that I was never using before. And I've got all this data in these systems, and I got data moving between these systems, and I have no control or governance in place or risk understanding of what's happening inside those systems. And I don't know what my security posture and my risk posture is at this point.
We were dealing with about 10 account takeovers a week during COVID, business email compromises, account takeovers. And just like Tyson said, actually, what ends up happening is that sometimes they just take those credentials and now they're going to go and try to, phish or attack another company. So you might not even see the fruits of where they're going. So with your business email compromise, even though that you took care of it. And the same thing is true as for somebody else who has your contact information, and we've all probably seen that phishing email come through trying to get credentials, because that's really at the core of it. What they're really trying to do is trying to get credentials, get inside of a network and take over. But yeah.
Yeah, so when we talk about that risk and that exposure level that we have as an organization now, we're not just talking about, just the computers that are on the network behind our firewall that we generally consider pretty safe and secure. Now we've got remote workers that are working from all kinds of devices, from all kinds of places, interacting with the people that are inside the office, interacting with cloud systems, interacting with multiple different cloud systems. All this data is moving back and forth between all of our endpoints, all of our systems, all the time, all day. And now that's that many more attack vectors, that many more opportunities that the bad actors can take advantage of. We've moved away from a day of being able to just install a piece of antivirus on a computer and assume that computer is going to have some safety because it's protected from the bad viruses. We're way beyond that today. We're at a completely different level when we talk about cybersecurity. And the challenge that we have with cybersecurity is the fundamental lack of the depth of risk that a lot of organizations still cling to. And there's a lot of common assumptions that people still utilize, and they've left them more exposed than they know. Backups are critical. You can't have a proper, robust in security environment without good backups. When you go to look for cybersecurity insurance, they're going to want to make sure you have backups. They want them to be immutable backups. They want them to be, stored somewhere else that if your environment does get compromised, you can get your data back. Backups are great, but backups are after the fact. They're a get you back up and running. They're not a prevention of stopping you from being impacted. We want to do as much to help stop the event from happening in the first place. Then we want to do as much to help you remediate from that event as quickly as possible when it does happen. So backups are a critical component of that, but they're not the answer by themselves. I have antivirus and a firewall, I'm protected. Yeah, you're protected from the known viruses that have been out for days or weeks, that there's a signature for, that your computer can understand and identify. But the bad actors are creating new viruses, and now they're using AI to create them real time on the fly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. New viruses and risks are being exploited on your systems. And you're behind a firewall, that's great. How many of us work remote behind a lesser firewall? Or has our firewall been patched in the last week or month or year? And is it still susceptible to a whole bunch of vulnerabilities that allow people to bypass it? So firewall's good, antivirus is good, but they're not good enough by themselves. I have cybersecurity insurance. Oh, if I have a problem, they'll just give me all the money I need. They'll give you the money you need to get back up and running. But again, they won't stop the event from happening. And if you don't have the right components in place and you don't have them in place properly, you might not get as much money as you think, or you might not be able to get cybersecurity insurance in the first place. So now a lot of the cybersecurity tools we're going to talk about and a service that is monitoring and managing them is becoming a requirement for cybersecurity insurance in organizations over a certain size or in specific risk industries. You're never going to tell if something is wrong right away. Like I said, generally speaking, the bad actors are in the environment for 3 months before they activate any kind of exploit or attack. And then someone will manage this internally. If you don't have the internal team that's already got multiple security professionals, you haven't built up a security operations center, and you don't have the C-level executives involved in regular tabletop exercises about what you do and how you deal with a cybersecurity attack, you don't have anyone that's managing it internally. There are large organizations we have, customers that we deal with today, that have an entire cybersecurity team inside their environment. That's rare. And most organizations, sub thousands of users, can't afford the cost of hiring a full cybersecurity team.
Or even having the correct tools in place, being able to provide that to these smaller teams as well. Sometimes that's what they need. And often we run a lot of audits for organizations. And what comes back is that the IT teams that are in place are underfunded, or that they're just underfunded in general, yeah. Which means that they don't have the right tools, they don't have the right people. And so trying to find something to help and fill these gaps is extremely important. And that's part tools, part process, part partnership.
100%. And that's the challenge that we see in a lot of organizations. They either don't have the right tools, or they don't have the tools deployed under a comprehensive plan. You can't build a house with the tools if you don't have a plan. You can go out and buy all the tools, buy all the equipment, and without the right plan of how you're going to build a wall, all the equipment's just going to sit there and do nothing for you. You need the tools, you need the plan, and then you need the proper oversight and management to be sure it's being done the right way.
And we've seen that in customers that have purchased what I call, complicated cybersecurity platforms, where they only use about 2% of the features. They don't have the knowledge or the know-how to use it. The alerts go unmanaged. There's nobody to phone or to message or really rapid support. Like, I mean, in a couple minutes, hey, I have something going on. I need advice. So that's what's really we see lacking across most organizations, specifically in Canada.
And so it's important that we talk about the tools and the technologies that are out there, and where you need to be going, and what the tools and technologies and processes and systems and people that need to be involved are. So we had traditional antivirus for the longest time, signature-based, doesn't understand if your computer is doing something bad or not, only understands if data comes in that matches this profile, the signature, and then says, oh, I can stop that. We're well beyond regular everyday antivirus. The next step up was EDR, Advanced Endpoint Detection and Response. It usually involved some sort of anomaly-based detection. So it didn't just rely on a signature. It said, I don't like what this application's doing. Maybe I'm going to shut it down. I see some weird activity here. I should alert or block it or do something with it. We've also, for a long time, had network detection response, whether that is, log generation, going to like a security event monitoring system, like a SIEM, and you're gathering logs and you're collecting data from the network real time. And that tells you another part of the story of what's going on. And it does fill another gap of protection. So now we've got endpoint over here, and we've got this other system that's doing the network and the logs. And then we have XDR, where we take that and we roll that up into some sort of a combined tool that's trying to see data from both the endpoint risk and the network risk, but it doesn't really have a formal management process behind it or security operations center behind it to understand what to do and how to manage and deal with it. And that's where true managed detection and response comes in. And it takes all of those components, endpoints, network, servers, activity, anomalous detection, identity protection, looking at your cloud services, Microsoft 365, Google, Dropbox, understanding when there's an identity issue, not necessarily data's being taken at that point, but someone's logged in as someone that's impossible from a place that they couldn't possibly have logged into from, or there's weird activity happening in this account. Nothing's been compromised or taken, but an identity may have been compromised. And we roll all that up into a combined function of review. We have a security operations team that reviews it, manages it, and then alerts the customers and follows up and manages the entire process. That's a true MDR solution, and it compromises the entire network, firewall, device, wherever you might be, covers you in the office, out of the office, all across all the different ways you connect. So MDR really is managed detection and response. It's taking all those tools, lining them up into a monitoring service that has response and alert and management capability with a proper tool set that aligns to the plan of what you want to do with your cybersecurity posture as a whole, as an organization. We want to make sure that we're understanding the risk, not just when we're awake sitting in front of our computers, but when we're all asleep and something bad happens to the computer that's still on, or the network that's still connected, the servers that are still running. It's 24/7 monitoring, alerting, and proactive action when we see nefarious activity going on inside an endpoint, inside your network, inside your cloud services, and being able to act on them. Why MDR? Yeah.
On the sorry, forgive me, by the way, I had to jump off camera for 2 seconds, but on the slide that we were talking about on the EDR, NDR, MDR, and XDR, the important takeaway there is the concept of layering. The concept of layering is something that we want to make sure that you've got a fail-safe, you know what I mean? And one of the things that we know that is lacking is, first of all, is this layering of technology. It's good. We see endpoint detection also having a component that has like a network detection that's tied in also with the perimeter detection. But linking all of this stuff together is great. The other important part, which is what the previous slide was about, was really about a SOC team. Is really who's got your back on this? Who is looking at these alerts? Because this isn't a 9 to 5. This is a 24/7. This is at 3 a.m. in the morning. So that's what's really kind of links everything, is making sure that available to IT teams or to an organization, depending on what type of support model that you actually need, you have that SOC team ready to intervene and to really kind of stop that bleeding. Because what I can tell you from experience is you will need to investigate something. Not everything is black and white. There's gray in there. Sometimes we have to take it. We have to cut something off and then begin to investigate. So I just wanted to add that. And who does that is typically a SOC team.
Absolutely. And yeah, and that's where a lack of resources in most organizations is the biggest limiting factor to a proper cybersecurity plan and remediation and action, because they just don't have the resources internally. And that's where an MDR service comes along and provides that level of resource that is almost very difficult to hire for in an individual organization, both from finding the right people, managing them properly, but just the cost factor, especially if you're not a very large organization. And then another reason for MDR is just to prevent as much as possible, but also minimize the damage and improve the time to remediate and get back up and running from a cyber attack. You'll never hear myself or Alvin or anyone in the industry say, oh, you put this solution in, you're not going to have any problems. Absolutely not. This is not you're not going to get compromised. This is we're trying to put as many preventative measures in place to reduce the chances of you being compromised and provide a better option for how we're going to help you recover when you're compromised. It's an all-encompassing component because you're going to be compromised. Every single organization is going to be attacked and compromised at some point. Now the measuring stick is how much can we prevent it, how much can we limit it, and how minimal can we make the risk. And as we talked about earlier, the sophistication of threats is constantly improving. This is a war. There's escalation happening on both sides. The bad actors keep coming up with new ways. The modern MDR tools keep coming up with new ways to help protect and defend and notify and alert and remediate. And it is a true active monitoring and automation-based system. We have the system configured that it will take some actions automatically without any of our involvement, especially after hours when you're compromised and when people's accounts are now hacked and made accessible to the internet, to bad actors, and in the worst case scenario, to the dark web for multiple bad actors to start working against. So why should you use MDR? And who should use MDR? Sorry, everybody, SMEs, organizations with or without a dedicated IT team, especially if you're in sort of regulated or sectors that have some sort of reporting that you have to do, you're almost not going to be able to function anymore without some level of an MDR solution in place. Like I said earlier, we're seeing cybersecurity insurance requirements change dramatically over the last few years from, a one-page document. Do you have some basic things in place? We filled some out for customers now that are 30 pages. They want detailed explanation of what you have in place, how you're managing it, how you're operating it, what is your IT spend, all of this information. And an MDR solution is at the core of answering a lot of those questions and being able to get cybersecurity insurance or get it for a reasonable rate. So for us as MSP Corp, we have we consider a new grade of cybersecurity for the SMEs, the small, medium, mid, small enterprise organizations of all different types of industries. This is really an industry independent solution because it can work in any industry and it can work in coordination with whatever security regulations or requirements you have. It's accessible. We allow access to the system, to the customers to utilize it and benefit from the same tools that we're utilizing. It is built on world-class technology. It's using some of the best products and solutions out there, and it is a completely proactive solution in either of the two ways you can interact with us to utilize this solution. We've set it up so that if you have an IT environment that has cybersecurity capability and you're looking for a managed tool set to help work with, we have our self-managed solution that's really defined and set up for the more independent organizations that really are just looking for that tool set that's been properly designed to work together. For the customers that don't have that, we have our co-managed solution where our team doesn't just work as the delivery mechanism of the application sets that are the tools. We also are the ones monitoring the alerts, activating on the alerts, taking actions with you in your environment when something takes place and happens.
Yeah, and these two models, just to go back in time a little bit, it's decades of listening to customers and understanding, running hundreds of audits with customers, understanding their environments, their IT teams, the gaps in terms of cybersecurity, availability as well, right? So they go hand in hand, availability and security. You can't have really one without the other. But these two models that we have, which is a self-managed, which is serving those teams, like Tyson said, that are limited in capacity in terms of, hey, they can't take on everything. But at the same time, we know that with all organizations, there's budgets. And so we try to make sure that we've listened to the customers, the organizations, the IT teams that we've worked with, and that we know that they need to have the tool set. So we don't want to not offer something to people who really need it or have limited IT teams and they have the capabilities and their own ticket systems and their own capabilities internally, because that could be a 600, 700, 800 customer, a seat customer where they have a limited IT team, but they still need the tools. So we love the fact that we're able to offer the same tools that we use inside to offer our services, but in a different fashion to those IT people. So I think that's decades in the making, right, Tyson?
Absolutely. You're not going to like this solution you're going to love this solution. There's a variety of reasons you're going to love this solution. This is just some of the highlights. I'm not going to go through all of these, but the most critical one, and Alvin's going to demonstrate in just a couple minutes, is the AROs and how they enable our team and your team to work together to take the right action without being inundated with thousands of action items every day. Because if you went and put some cybersecurity tools in place, your environment, your team would just be overwhelmed trying to manage the incredible amount of ticket information it's going to generate. This is a managed process. We keep that reduced for you. We're protecting the entire environment, your endpoints, your network, your servers, your cloud services. It's across the entire environment. We're getting all that data in, and we're utilizing it together to give the appropriate reporting and alerting for what's going on in your environment. And it's a layered system. We have protection at the edge with incoming data from an email perspective. We have protection for vulnerabilities. We have active response. We have the DNS firewall that helps protect your devices when they're outside your network, outside your traditional firewall. That's generally going to be a safer environment. And
I think what's interesting on that slide, sorry,
Sure.
Tyson, I didn't mean to jump in, but just like something interesting that just hit me was on the previous slide that you were on, which is on the threat intelligence, right? So that's actually often a question on cybersecurity questionnaires that most people actually say yes to. Yes, I have threat intel, or I subscribe to threat intelligence. And what we're going to see, and hopefully get to be able to show you on the demo, but threat intelligence is actually built into the platform. And the answer is yes. You do get some of it from the Microsoft world, and maybe for some of your other tool sets, and maybe you're in the cloud. But in reality, what you want is the threat intelligence that's linking all of this up and providing you a different contextual information based off of your endpoints, your network, your cloud, and even, by the way, your domain and your public attack surface that we call it. So, you know, your IP addresses that are exposed, your VPNs, your firewalls, and your even just your actual domain name, which could be typo squatted, as I'm sure many of you have already seen.
This is more than just threat detection. It's more than just endpoint protection. It is a complete proactive managed detection and response solution. And so we're following all the industry cybersecurity compliance frameworks. We leverage many of them. It's going to give you a proper answer, as Alvin just mentioned, to a lot of what is your cybersecurity plan, and that it has the proactive functions.
Been part of our DNA for a while to be proactive, right, Tyson?
Absolutely.
That's what we want. That's where we want to exist. If we're proactive, we're going to always have to be reactive. And hopefully we're going to see this in the demo and some of the components, but being proactive means that we get a heads up as to what could potentially be causing us. And Tyson mentioned AROs, or action recommendations and observations. And it's a really nice way to look at things that are extremely important to us. Sorry, go ahead, Tyson. Yeah. Oh, is it to
go ahead,
the
jump
demo?
into the
We're
demo,
there?
please. Yeah.
We're there.
We're there.
Okay. I'll let you fill the time and space for a minute while I just get fired up on my side.
Yeah, let me know when you're ready to go. So, back to the why of why a solution like this is required. The three simple bullet points there, we're going to help you minimize your cybersecurity risk. You're not going to be as exposed, and you're going to have more ability to recover, remediate when something happens, because we're going to be able to detect the threats faster. And we have 24/7 security operations center and incident response features available to us within this entire solution. So we have not just the ability to help prevent, we have the ability to help deal with the issues when they happen, and then we have the ability to help make your environment back up and running quicker, less cost, less downtime. You ready to go?
Yeah, I am ready to go. I'm good. All right. I don't know, everybody should probably see my screen now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the reason why we wanted to do this demo and show you the back end is the same conversation that I have with a lot of customers. So often what you end up getting with an organization that you want to do your managed detection and response is that they're going to show you a black box. So what we wanted to show you was really that what we use, and we're going to lift up the hood and we're going to show you on the backside as much as I possibly can in the time frame that I have, because there's a lot in here. But to start off, one of the things that I know from experience actually, and some of the people on this call might resonate with this, but when you're presented with a screen that has a lot of stuff on it, you actually probably only use about 5% of it. What I can tell you is that our team and the customers we already work with on this, use probably about 95% of everything that you're looking at here. So what arrives when you log in? Well, you see this. It's a dashboard, and typically when you log into a SOC platform, it could be overwhelming. So you get a lot of flashy lights all over the place. This one is giving you a really quick status about what we're doing. So I'm going to reiterate or re-explain maybe a couple things that Tyson already went over. And on this screen, we're looking at really what are the areas that we're protecting. And one of the areas is really on the cloud side. So, and I'll show you some of the integrations, but the integrations that we have the capability of doing are with Microsoft. So on the 365 and the Azure, things like G Suite, Salesforce as well. And so these types of integrations come into the cloud. And on the Salesforce side, one of the interesting parts is like, just to give you a quick example, is that most people don't even monitor what the accounts are and what they're doing on Salesforce. In fact, actually, there's a lot of brute forces that are happening there that you may not have visibility on. So we can pull all of that telemetry inside through the cloud monitoring. I'm going to come back to this little globe in a second because it's one of the understated features of this product, but it's one of my favorite. So the other area that Tyson mentioned was really firewalls. So we have the ability to, first of all, what we typically like to do is we want to see all the north-south traffic coming in. So we'll probably hang ourselves up inside of your inside of like a core network that you have that has maybe things that you can't monitor. So this is an interesting piece of the puzzle, really, where you might have maybe medical equipment. Maybe you've got a warehouse with a lot of IoT stuff that you can't really install agents on, or you don't really have the ability to even manage them because UPS machines are managed by UPS, and probably sure everyone come up with at least 2 or 3 other examples. But we may not always be able to install agents and have visibility. So what we're able to do is actually hang ourselves up in either inline or in a mirror on the network to actually get all visibility as needed. In some cases, we actually have enough telemetry from just the agents that we would put on the servers or on your core infrastructure that will give us the telemetry that we need. So cloud, perimeter network, getting all the visibility, all traffic, everything going in and out. And then we have the infamous endpoint over here. So these are the 3 main areas, and on the endpoint as well, you obviously have a DNS firewall, which we'll get into in a second. But I'm going to come back to this little globe, and what the globe is really there is the internet. But the way I look at it is that it's your public attack surface area, and that's things like your domain name. So what we typically have seen, and I'll rip from the examples of what we've done and what I've actually experienced, so that so it's real for you. So we actually fired this up for a customer. And one of the first alerts actually we got was immediately one for a typo squatting domain. And when we investigated the alert, actually, we saw that actually the domain was created. We activated the service about a day or 2 before this domain was actually created. So we actually saw the time and date stamp of this typo squatting domain, and the customer's domain is very unique. So looking at the typo squatting domain, we immediately saw that, okay, this is actually a real attack that was happening. And so we were able to actually communicate to the organization that, hey, by the way, immediately, probably you might be under some sort of, potential phishing attack that's coming in, that we're going to, number one, the action that we take under a co-manage is that we would actually block that domain from actually communicating with the environment. So our technicians will actually log in, 365, go in, create the block. And then the second thing is that for this organization, we communicated to them, and there was potential partners that could be affected. So they prepared a communication, and we actually have templated communications for these kind of things. So we were able to just share some template communication, and they formulated something and sent it to their partners to, hey, watch out, you might get something from this, and you might want to also block it on your side. And in fact, actually, one of the partners got back to them and said, hey, by the way, we actually did get a hit on our side for this, so thanks for sharing that with us. So things like this, often, this is that proactiveness, that prevention component that we're talking about, that you need the visibility and the tools in order to do this. The other thing that this public attack surface is going to show you is that it's also going to be able to, and I'm going to show you this, by the way. I'm going to go in and click through, and I'm going to show you how where we do it. But we register all your public domains, and actually probably a good idea. How about I just show you right now? We'll just jump straight through into integrations. And so if I go here, so we'll see, we're going to put your domains in. We're going to put your email domains in. We're going to put your IPs in. We're going to put your public IPs, and we're also going to put your safe networks, and we're also going to put your staff locations. So what this essential service profile is going to do for us is that it's going to create a pretty good additional telemetry that the threat intelligence that's coming through and being fed into the machine learning engine is going to be able to deduce at another layer. So so it's going to be able to tell us whether or not there's something on this network, or whether or not this user is inside of a safe network and we should react differently. The other thing that the public IPs are going to do, and I'm just going to jump back to this this dashboard just so we can have that visual, is the for this globe here, is that we're going to be able to look at your perimeter network. So that's your attack surface. And one of the other alerts that we've had activated. So we were in on, we've activated this, by the way. This tool gets activated. If you're under an attack, you should definitely call us. This is one of the tool sets that we would implement on your side. And one of the things that actually comes up often that we see is when we put your public IPs in, is all of a sudden there's a machine that lights up that hasn't communicated directly on the internet, but all of a sudden there's a port that's been opened, and we can actually detect the direct communication to the internet that's abnormal from that system. I'm going to pause for a second and let that sink in a little bit, because that's an actual pretty important telemetry, that the network was stable, nothing was available on the internet, and all of a sudden on January 22nd at 8 a.m., bang, a machine lit up, and all of a sudden is accessible from the outside. So that type of telemetry is available, and where we see that is typically on an ARL. So, sorry, yeah. So I was trying to make sure I had the right one selected. So in here are the examples of the different types of ARO that we may potentially get. And of course, we have the suspected malware blocked. So we'll give you details about the malware, what happened, what's going on. I wanted to just use this as an example, because at the bottom, you're going to see something called request help. So this is something that's extremely useful. And by the way, everything that I'm showing you here is available on, for those self-managed teams, is available on an app on your mobile. And you can request help. So if there's something that you want to investigate, or hey, I'm needing some help. I need more information about this user. Or maybe you're here and you're at a potential compromise. So this potential compromise here, what would typically happen is that, number one is if there's any kind of activity that has a high enough rating for it, you will be blocked, by the way. And how do we determine when we're going to block you and we're not going to block you? I'm going to go back to service profiles in a second to explain that, because some organizations are less sensitive to blocking. So there's some organizations that just travel a lot, right? So they're going to have a different approach. But I'm going to explain how we handle that in a second. But just to stay here on this account potential compromise, is that we can see the telemetry that's coming in for this. And we can see that the travel time doesn't make sense, the distance doesn't make sense. And by the way, it could be a suspicious, it could be, sorry, a VPS provider, right? So those virtual private networks that somebody use. But what's interesting here is that we also have an additional telemetry, because the way that this is deployed is that typically what we like to see is we like to see a layered defense. So we know that a lot of people, by the way, have the Microsoft Defender and the Business Premium suite, which we wanted to make sure that we were compatible with that suite. In that, if you have Microsoft and Business Premium, so you've got a layer of defense there, by the way. So you've got some stuff that's protecting your emails, and you've also got the Defender endpoint that's going to be put on your machine, and you're going to have some other capabilities for automation in there as well. But we don't want just one technology. So we want to be able to leverage those types of technologies, such as Microsoft Defender endpoint, and be able to add a different layer. So we also layer on a field effect agent on there that goes on, works with the cloud, works with the perimeter, and also the endpoint and those Microsoft alerts as well. So coming back into the ARO, what would typically happen is that you might have a potential risk or a potential compromise. What typically occurs.
I was gonna jump in for a
time
second.
check?
Yeah, we are at 10:47, so we understand if anyone needs to go.
Yeah.
And we'll continue demoing for a few more minutes. Also, just wanted to give a chance if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask now before they need to leave. We'll just go on with a couple more minutes with the demo. But if you had any questions you wanted to ask now, please feel free to use the chat to ask any questions. Or if you want to ask it live, raise your hand and we can turn your microphone and or camera back on if you'd like.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Alvin, keep going while we give people a chance.
No problem.
To
just interrupt me, Tyson, by the way. So I can talk about this stuff all day. Like, that's my problem. So
I know.
So I'm gonna go through I'm gonna hit a few things because they're gonna be pretty interesting. So number one is we're gonna develop for you risk scores. Okay. We're also going to have availability of all your devices, but what's kind of cool is we're going to actually associate a risk level with them based on, configuration, updates, and, the type of operating system that you're going to be running. We're also going to have visibility on all of your cloud accounts, which are obviously not populating right now for me in my demo, but that's okay. So they'll all be populating in there with, you'll also have a risk level that's going to be associated. We're going to go into a little bit on the insights, which we can look, and we could take a look at the network telemetry. And hey, what kind of, where are my actual beacons really kind of coming from? Are they coming, where are my security events coming from? Are they beacons? Are they blacklist? Is it a signature? What is it really? And then going into my cloud monitoring, actually, I'm able to actually get more visibility in terms of what that attack surface looks like. This is my DNS firewall. So you're going to actually have something, if you're on the Business Premium side with the Defender endpoint, you're already going to have some sort of web protection on there. This is actually a layered defense that works in collaboration with it, actually. And again, the core of it that we talked about was really about layering your defenses. This is the part that I kind of wanted to just stop on really quickly, because the reporting is extremely important. Is that what has been happening on my environment? What have I been doing? What's been going on? What's my risk level? What am I trending towards? So what we provide is we provide a vulnerability report. There's also going to be a dark web report, which we barely touched on, by the way. So when we put your domain in and your IP addresses, one of the things that actually we'll use that for as well is to make sure that we're associating that with any kind of dark web, maybe potentially, obviously the things that you're more common with are, my credentials have been breached, those like, have my own kind of thing. So, but we're going to go further. Has there been mentions? Is there a potential attack that's being, discussed about the organization? This actually happens. I've seen the back end of this type of threat intel, and it's actually pretty scary. So it's good. So it's included as part of your complete package. And when you go with either the self or the co-managed, I wanted to give you the risk score idea, the risk score report, sorry. So these are other reports. And by the way, these are going to be automated. And when you work with our team under a co-manage, we set these up. We run these for you. We also, what we do is we actually have monthly cadences that we run through and make sure, hey, did we review this report? Because I'm just going to give you this weekly right here. Sorry, I just skipped to the weekly. But we want to make sure that on a weekly basis that we're kind of reviewing things like your email security failed authorization attempts. One that actually happened really quickly was an admin one, by the way. We saw like 500 and we immediately just investigated it. We said, oh, that's interesting. It's like, why is this happening? So that's more, again, to the proactiveness of what we're trying to do with this program. With that said, yeah, I'm kind of I'm running through it. There's a ton more that we could probably do. But you know what? You know what's great is that number one, I'll let Tyson kind of close this up, but we're happy to do a demo one-on-one and show the value directly to your organization.
Absolutely. So, there's just a couple of things I wanted to catch on, just in case some of the terminology isn't something everyone understands. Some of the things that Alvin talked about, DNS firewall, just so people understand what that's doing for you. It's controlling so that when you're on your computer going to a website, doesn't matter what website it is, where in the world, your browser is checking with our system before it goes to that website to see if that website is a bad website. So it prevents you from going to bad websites. And those bad websites, and we're not talking bad websites because of content control like we've had for years. These are fake websites the bad actors are putting up, like a fake Royal Bank website or a fake TD Bank website, where you're going to go in, think it's the real website and put your credentials in. Those are going to be blocked and you're not going to be going to those fake sites. But at the right sites, the real ones that you need to go to, you're going to be able to go to and they're going to be allowed the way they should be. So that's the type of protection that's providing. And Alvin also mentioned the typo squat domains. So just for the layman's explanation, that's when someone takes your domain name, like, mspcorp.ca, and makes a letter change, and you start getting emails from what looks like someone that's Tyson at MSP Corp, but it's got an O where the R was, and your users just don't catch that because they don't look at it in that level of detail. It's preventing those types of emails from getting into your system at all. So that's the extra type of protection that the system is providing in those simple services.
And what I really wanted to show was I wanted to show one of the interactions that we actually had with the AROs, because one of the advantages that you have when you come under a co-manage with us is that we'll feed all of your tickets coming from any of the alerts that we would have into our professional services automation, so our ticketing system. And then our SOC team will then go ahead and investigate. Like I mentioned at the beginning of our call, is that it's great that you have an alert. It's good that you've got, some sort of automated processes that'll maybe take some sort of action, but I'd say in about 70% of the cases, you still need to do an investigation and understand, why did that happen? What came out of that? And one of the examples that I saw actually in the last 24 hours from our team was that there was actually an alert that actually triggered an investigation from the SOC team that flagged that their conditional access policy was too permissive based on the telemetry that came in. So that back and forth lasted about, a couple hours of, between, the day. And at the end of it resulted in the customer saying, actually, I don't need it to be that permissive. You can go ahead and make that modification and restrict it to only Canada. So it was Canada and the US. So that's the level of interaction that we have when you work with the SOC team and the alerts. So there's a back and forth, there's an understanding, and again, coming back to the core concept that we really are trying to prevent.
Absolutely. So a couple important next steps. Whether this content resonated with you specifically for the Guardian Shield MDR service, maybe you feel you're not ready for that, maybe you're not sure what the right thing to do is, there's a number of things that you need to consider that are critical for your cybersecurity as a whole. A cybersecurity posture assessment of some type. Whether you do it yourself, you have someone help you with it, you should understand where you are from a cybersecurity risk perspective as an organization. Regulatory requirements. Law 25 now exists in Quebec. There's Bill C-27 coming at some point from the federal government if they ever get back in running again. We have integration concerns with, external entities that may have access into your network, 24/7 monitoring and support. All of these are related to your cybersecurity, help with understanding your cybersecurity insurance, all part of the services that we perform. We really want to thank everyone for taking their time today. We know your time is valuable. We do very much appreciate it. For attending today, if you're interested, we can provide a no-cost Guardian Shield attack surface report. Help you understand what your risk is from the outside of your organization. You may not know, how many holes there are in the fence. We'll help you understand, can people see through the fence or not? And that's a no-cost solution that we do for customers on a billable service on a regular basis. And for attending today, we're offering that at no cost. So if that is of any interest to you, please reach out to any contact you already have within the organization. If you're not sure who to contact, cybersecurity@mspcorp.ca will get you to the right person. We really want to thank everyone for their time, and I'm still available. I assume Alvin is for a few minutes as well for any further questions. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to use the chat in the webinar to type any questions in, use the Q&A, or there's certainly the ability to answer a question live if you want to turn your microphone on and or your camera and just have an open discussion.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Jason.
Yes.
And yeah, thanks, Calvin. I think he's gone now. He hit the checkout.
He left.
Checkout. That's okay. That's okay. That was a while ago. The attack surface report is something that I love how it just it's a great starting point for a discussion because it's what threat actors see, right? So.
Excellent. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Really appreciate you taking the time. Any follow-up questions you might have, reach out to your contacts, or again, cybersecurity@mspcorp.ca. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Appreciate spending time with you.
Thank you, everyone.